Welcome to episode 2 of our RêveD RDX series. In this week's episode, we build out a C-LSD differential from RHINO Racing and discuss the ins and outs of the build out, as well as different avenues you can travel when building your very own. We'll discuss some key features that make the C-LSD unique, addressing what other parts will be needed, as well as the tools you can use that will make this job easy. We'll wrap up today installing some hot boy goodness in the form of a multi-setting underglow kit into our Yokomo Chaser body. If you like information, this episode is for you.
The heat is scorching.
I want to kick off today's episode with a big thank you to all of our new and existing subscribers joining us in our new series for 2023. We're gaining momentum and we couldn't do it without all of your support. Starting off, this latest version of the C-LSD is sporting some new packaging and will arrive to you completely disassembled. You'll find a couple of bearings installed in your outdrive, so don't be alarmed when they aren't within the little bag of parts. You'll receive 2 outdrive cups, a gear housing, end caps, bearings, gear pins, outdrive pins, internal gears, spacers, shims, 1 thrust bearing assembly, soft and hard springs, and the necessary assembly hardware. Step 1 will be to organize all of your parts and ensure everything is within your packaging. I utilized this cheap paint mix tray that I got from Hobby Lobby to make organizing these little parts a breeze. Think assembly line. And if you have fat fingers like me, a set of tweezers will make organizing small parts like this much easier. To begin assembly, I grabbed one of the 4 small pins and I inserted it into the end of one of the outdrive gears. To verify I used the correct size pin, I completed the assembly to check the gap tolerance for the thrust bearing assembly. This is the correct pin. Your assembly will come in a separate bag within your bag. It has 2 grooved washers and the little bearing assembly that is the brass color. Ensure when installing your washer it is smooth side down, groove side up, then your brass piece followed by the other washer, and do it in the opposite orientation, groove side down, flat side up. Now just install the opposite side and your outdrive gear assembly is complete. Before you move on, ensure that you have a smooth and fluid motion from your assembled piece. If you're planning to use lubrication, now would be the time to apply it. Our next step will be inserting the correct weight springs into the end cap plates. For this step, you're going to need a digital caliper. This is a simple model that you can purchase from Amazon. I've included the affiliate link down below. I like it because it features a replaceable battery, smooth action, measurements up to 150 millimeters, and it returns to 0 with great precision. Now I went ahead and continued measuring springs until I had enough of each size so I could test which ones I wanted. The overall size for the thick or heavy spring was 0.20, while the thinner spring measured out at 0.14. Installing the springs proved to be a little tricky, so have some patience with yourself as you figure out which method works best for you. I found installing the point first and followed by the wings or the 2 pieces coming off of the point second, and kind of slid it down as uniformly as possible seemed to work the best for me. I also have background with this differential as I have already ran one in my Usakani NGE, so I know which settings I'm looking for, and I opted to run the 2 soft springs on each side. You can install up to 4 springs on each side, and the strength of the spring will determine how quickly your differential will lock up under power. The stiffer the spring, the longer it will take. The softer the spring, the quicker it will happen. Once all your springs are installed, you can begin assembly. Start by installing your outdrive gear into one end plate. Use your second end plate as a base to hold it in the proper position and ensure that your gears are meshing and seated in the proper location. I use my tweezers to install my shafts, then gears, and finally spacers. But feel free to assemble your gear assembly outside and install as a total unit if that works easiest for you. This is a completed 4-gear setup. I took this opportunity to install the other end cap and ensure that we had smooth movement in our differential before locking everything up. I then seated the 4 lower screws, ensuring that the assembly would not fall apart. Now I can remove the top cap and apply lubrication before sealing it all up with the 4 top screws. Remember, a little goes a long way. Finish the job with a few ugga-duggas and you'll be ready to install your outdrive cups, the final step in assembly. Installing the outdrives is simple. Just match up the holes, insert the pin, press the pin in, and you're done. Repeat for the opposite side. Now let's talk about what makes the C-LSD unique. The fact that it is totally open when it is side to side, but as soon as it's on drive, it is going to lock up with a centrifugal force. That's really cool. I think that internal springs combating that lockup timing is revolutionary, and to see this type of technology in an RC form is just so cool. Now, by adding more gears to your assembly, running the 8-gear configuration would give you more forward momentum when the differential is locked up. So less gears, less forward momentum, more gears, more forward momentum. Now, enough talking about it, let's get to the install. What's sweet about this RDX is this ESC plate. You simply slide your ESC plate off, exposing your 4 screws to remove the differential cover. Now for the lower 2, I did need to remove the diffuser, so keep that in mind when doing your own. One of these speed drivers comes in super handy, especially when you're doing disassembly and you don't need to be worried about blowing out the plastic. Now with the lower diffuser removed and my last 2 screws removed from the diff cover, you can slide the diff cover off, exposing the stock spool differential. The stock spool will slide out. You may need to finagle it a little side to side to free it up from the drive shaft assembly. Now before you chuck this thing in a parts box to be forgotten about, make sure you remove those stock bearings. You just need to remove the internal screw, and then the bearing will come right off of the plastic race. To complete your C-LSD swap, you're going to need to get yourself some of these Yokomo drive cup protectors for aluminum drive cups. It's part number B8-500DPA. These protectors fit perfectly into your outdrives and will ensure there's no slop, giving you precise throttle and brake control. They'll snap over your existing drive shaft. Next, we'll reinstall the stock bearings. Now we'll stage our drive shafts towards the rearmost position, ensuring that we can stick them into the outdrives easier before installing our differential back into its housing. Give it a spin to make sure that your gear mesh is proper and that everything is working correctly. You can then reinstall your diff plate cover and install all of the necessary hardware. Don't forget your diffuser. Now let's switch gears and install some Hot Boy underglow in our Yokomo Chaser body. These kits retail for $29.99 and offer some really great features. The first feature is the stickable light pads. So we'll begin by wiping all the dust and contaminants off of our body. These stickable light pads make installation super breezy and super easy. Next, you'll want to confirm where your receiver is on your chassis and allocate the wiring to come off of the body in roughly the same location, which will make getting the body on and off the chassis much easier. I'll then rough out the shape in which I'm going to pull the lights around the body to ensure that I will have enough to wrap around to the correct location and adjust myself accordingly. There's not really any right or wrong way to do this, but for the way that I like the lights to shine, this method works best for me. Next, I'll remove the adhesive backing protector and begin applying the lights to the body, moving away from the start of the wire. Once your whole strip is stuck down, go back around and ensure that everything is just really nice and snug to the body. You won't get another chance. Next, you can begin roughing out the shape of the other strip of lights. I've noticed on my cars that I need to run them across the hood, but don't worry, you'll still get great light dispersion out the front of the car. I'll show you here in a second. Once you're happy with where your second strip of lights will land, begin sticking them down. This time it doesn't matter which side of adhesive you start with because you've ensured that it's going to land in the proper spot. When you get to the corners, you can kind of wrinkle these strips a little bit and get them to bend and turn around and still have great adhesion to the body with very minimal gaps. I had one diode of overlap on both sides, so I got a nice uniform fitment of my light kit. Now let's tidy up these wires before we finish our install. One well-placed zip tie later, and we're ready. To power your lights, plug them into an empty port on your receiver and power on your car. You can then program your lights to any mode you want. Programming is simple. By simply depressing the button quickly, you can change the colors on one set of your diodes, and by depressing and holding, you can change the other set. They have a bunch of pre-programmed colors as well as fades and flashers. So check them all out and decide which is going to look best on your car. And after much deliberation, I landed on blue and green. Go figure. When building out a unique car, these underglow kits really are just the cherry on top. They really help set the car off and give it a little bit of personality out there on track. I also love how it can accentuate and showcase some of your onboard components. If you think you need an underglow kit for one of your chassis, jump on scalesciencerc.com and pick one up today. We're shipping out multiple times a week now, and we put stickers in every single order. Hopefully you liked this week's video. Looking forward to the next one. We'll catch you next time.